I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. Revelations 3, verses 15 and 16. What is your favorite coffee creamer, and why is it peppermint mocha?
Absolutely not.
What? It's like a contradiction with the mocha and the peppermint.
No, peppermint mocha is the only creamer I will drink. I don't drink creamer with my coffee. I usually just have a little bit of milk to cool it down and add a little bit of creaminess. But in this time of the year, I start drinking peppermint mocha, and the Chobani one is by far the best one that was ever made.
Well, I found, so like when I was younger, like you look at like old people and they're kind of like black coffee. I'm like, why are you drinking that? Well, now that I'm older, I tend to just drink black coffee. And now I get it. I totally understand, because like cutting out the sugar, cutting out everything else, just can't have it.
So I love peppermint. I love mint. I love all kinds of mint. I love mint ice cream, my favorite.
And you like chocolate, right?
I love chocolate mint. I really do not care for peppermint mocha creamer.
Why?
I'll have it like once or twice, maybe a year.
Wow.
And that's it.
I'm more of a,
I do caramel macchiato,
ooh, yes.
International Delight. That's the only one I get, because all the other one, I'm not saying it's amazing. I think it's solid. I don't even like caramel, and I like it. Every other creamer I've ever tried, and I've tried I would almost say I tried probably 80% of them. I don't like any of them. They just suck.
Do you generally use the creamer, or?
I just use creamer.
Okay, so you're a creamer guy. And that's our segue into lukewarm Christianity. Welcome back to We Who Endure, Christian podcast. I'm Blade O'Neill, and joining me today is Lance, my brother, and my brother in Christ, Dustin. So we came up with this topic from if you've listened to the first episode. That was your verse.
That was my verse.
Right?
Yes, correct.
So why don't you take us away on this?
So kind of what we talked about in the last episode was the idea that God would rather have us, be, cold or hot. Because if we're lukewarm, you're either like a strong Christian, or you're just kind of, he'd rather have you just not at all than just kind of say, oh, I believe in God, and kind of go along your business, that sort of thing. Kind of like in what we were talking about with the coffee is the idea of, you want a hot coffee, you want an ice cold coffee. Nobody orders room temperature coffee. That's just what's been sitting there for a while.
It's time to stick it back in the microwave if it's
right.
Too cold.
Or back in or it gets diluted with all the ice, and then it just, yeah.
That's the downside to iced coffee. But I don't mean to turn us on. So one of the reasons why we wanted to do a more in-depth discussion with lukewarm Christianity, because like we're in the midst of this spiritual awakening. People are returning to church. People are buying Bibles. Bible sales are up. Whatever percentage it was. But it's not just for people who are new to the faith or are coming back again. I think it's a reminder for anyone else too who maybe is going to church every Sunday. But like, are you stuck in this cycle where you're going to church, you sing your songs, you say your prayers, you listen to the sermon, you get the
check a box basically for the week.
Check a box, and then you just go on. And you keep on sinning, you keep on, maybe you struggle with cursing at people while you drive, and you guys get really frustrated. Like, are you actually trying to get something out of it?
Right, you're filling that spiritual meter on a Sunday. And then waiting till the following Sunday, and everything in between, you just kind of go about business on your own.
Mm-hmm. I came across this reel the other day. It was really interesting, and
really interesting.
It was really interesting.
Real.
People are talking about like reading the Bible every day, and they said something along the lines of, if you read the Bible at least 4 nights a week, oh man, I'm screwing this up. But anyway, you start to really make a change for yourself. Like there was this actual study conducted versus like the nice reading.
Yeah, I think I've seen the same thing where it's like
was that number
versus reading 3 times or 2 times, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I saw that same one. Yeah,
so it's really interesting. So you've got to put the effort. You've got to make the effort having a relationship with God. And how do you do that? You read the Word. That's how God speaks to you. It's called the living Word for a reason.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when you look at that verse, sometimes it's, and obviously I think with all Christians you kind of get worried, like when you see something like that and you're like, I hope I'm not a lukewarm Christian, right? That's the last thing you want to be. And I guess really, like, I kind of have my opinion on that. Like, what does that mean? But I guess, like, what does that mean to you guys? Like, for me, it's like kind of what you said, you're just checking the box, or you don't really have an opinion on anything that's going on. You're just like, yeah, I believe in God, and that's it. And like, you couldn't really care less about anything else.
Yeah.
And you don't really necessarily live that life that God would want you to. You kind of just do your own thing. You're like, oh, I'm saved. I believe in Jesus, and you say that, but you don't actually like walk that walk. At least that's how I interpret it.
Right.
Right. And then some part of me also is like, if you are worried about it, you're probably not a lukewarm Christian, because that means you do have a desire to some extent, right? You definitely believe, right? Because if you were like, oh yeah, I'm fine, then well, I mean, maybe you're on fire for God, that's great. But sometimes people are like, yeah, I'm fine, I believe in God, and that's it. Like,
well, yeah, you kind of go through the movements and everything else. Like,
right.
Maybe you grew up in the church, maybe going to Sunday school, enough about the Bible to know what it's about, that you can hold a conversation, that you can say, yeah, I'm a believer, I believe in God, and by me being a good person and everything else, then that's all that matters. I'm rather than the idea that we have a loving God, a jealous God that wants only our attention. Like, he wants, if he could, 24/7, just all worship, him and everything else. Obviously, with everything else, it can't. But he yearns for any moment he can have with us.
Yeah, and I think that, and to piggyback on like the verse I had, right, is like, you seek God first in all things that you do, right? So I think that's also like the key, especially to, the second commandment talks about, not having any other idols, right? And big part of that is to make sure that like you seek God first. So it's really important that, sure, we always are focused on God and everything, but that something like for me, like, I know I love baseball, right? That's like a huge thing, but if it shouldn't be getting in the way with my relationship with God, right? That should be first, right? Or comic books, right? Like, shouldn't be, oh, well, I'm going to do all this stuff in the comic books and read all the comic books, but then you're not even reading your Bible, but you're reading more comics than you do your Bible. Like, that kind of stuff, like, really need to like devote that time and actual effort, instead of just being like, oh yeah, I believe in God, all right, I'm gonna do my thing.
I think you guys covered it pretty well, and I do agree, on the definition, and I'll be the first to admit, like, I definitely am and have been guilty of, becoming lukewarm, and I think just it was exactly what you described. It was like, I did grow up, going to church, going to a private school, and so like, yeah, I did know my Bible, and I was saved, and then after, when I started going to like public school in high school, and then I became an adult on my own, like, I got comfortable, and I was like, yeah, I'm saved, I believe in Jesus, like, I know the Bible. And then like, the problem is when you start coasting like that, and you don't spend time in the Word, you're losing your shield, part of your armor of God, right? So you start believing those little lies the enemy tells you, like, oh, the church can be so corrupt because of the overly self-righteous, because you may see that, and you're like, I don't need to go to church to have relations. Like, but are you making an effort on, otherwise, like, are you spending time with him on yourself?
Right.
Like, sure, maybe even if you're not going to church, but you're doing something on Sunday, having some kind of fellowship and reading the Bible, maybe, you should still go to church, don't get me wrong. But my point is, you start believing those lies, and it just becomes one little thing after another, and then you're just coasting, and you're not making an effort at all.
Well, that tarnish thing, it reminds me of in Matthew 5:13, when he's talking about salt losing its taste.
Yep, exactly.
With the seasoning and everything else. So it's like, the stuff, but like after a while, like, if it's not seasoned, it doesn't taste as good. So that's like kind of another way of kind of with that lukewarm thing, but we're using salt.
It's all part of the same exact thing. Like, we're called to be the light and salt of the earth, so, and as a different metaphor, becoming a lukewarm Christian, like, what is the point? Like, we're called to be an example. People should look at the way you live and are and be like, what is different about him or her, and then, that's when you have that opportunity. Like, it's Jesus.
I think
Right.
I think like a lot of it changes with like to kind of get out of that lukewarm. Like it changes like with routine
Yes.
and kind of what you do. So like things that I used to struggle with was, when you wake up in the morning, you got to do, your daily routine, you getting ready, making sure I'm not late for work. Instead, like waking up 15 minutes early. So like you're rising up with Jesus,
Mhm.
you're your first and last part of your day should be in prayer. So you're giving him your first, your last, just like with the priority of things of, God, family, country, um, but so to ways to help kind of get you out of that slump. I wrote down a few things. If you guys don't mind, if I share here real
Oh,
quick.
no, please.
Bury yourself in the Word, whether it be with a devotional, just to kind of get you somewhere, as opposed to being like, because sometimes it's daunting just opening up the Bible and being like, well, where do I start?
Well, and just to quickly throw in, before you read your Bible, if you're doing it every night, pray first
Of course.
and then do it. So especially if you're a newer Christian, you don't know that, pray. Even if you don't know what to say, just do it. And just ask, like, please speak to me,
And then the next thing I had was, surround yourself with fellowship and like-minded believers. So whether that be, like, yeah, you go to church, but maybe getting involved with a men's group or a couples group or some kind of,
or a monthly Bible brunch.
yeah, you could have, brunch with some people. But yeah, so surrounding yourself as opposed to, surrounding yourself with people that tend to kind of bring you down, because it's easier to bring you down than it is to bring other
Mhm.
people up. And then the other kind of challenge is, to change the way that you pray. Sometimes it becomes formulaic and it just be like, like, thank you, God, bless us for this day. And it's kind of scripted
Same
in a
thing
sense,
over and over again. Yeah.
but basically, like, to be bold, to invite God to work in you, like to have that, like, and it's a scary thing to be like, hey, what, I'm inviting you to change something in me, like, and also to be still and silent. Prayer doesn't mean you always have to be talking. You could just sit in silence for like 30 minutes and wait upon.
I mean, one of the things that you talk about, changing your prayer, sometimes I think, like you said, we do get stuck in that rut and we just kind of like, okay, I'm going to say my simple prayer, pray for my family, pray for this person, that person, okay, and pray for peace, whatever, and you're done, right? Like you kind of just do the same one. And sometimes, God does know what's on your heart, right? It does say, he knows your prayers, but sometimes you just, all you have to do is sometimes just ask. Like, cause like you have not, cause you ask not, right? Like sometimes it's as simple as like, it might seem crazy to you, or you don't, you won't even, maybe you don't even understand how it would even work out, but he will make it work out if that's what he wants, right? So sometimes you just got to ask. That's really what it comes down to.
And gosh, stop me if I said this testimony last episode. I don't even remember. You don't know. And, ye of little faith, right? I was having a hard time recently with something, and I walked into my office to grab my Bible, and it was like 10:40 at night. And I had some good luck on what to read, but I was like, God, like I really need some guidance right now. And I don't know how it could possibly have a sign at 10:40 at night. And all of a sudden my phone starts vibrating, and I thought it was a notification, and then I kept going. I'm like, wait a second. And I'm getting a phone call from a friend I haven't heard from in a long time, but he's a believer. And I answered, I was like, hey, he's like, you having a hard time right now? And he pointed me to Romans 12, and like, wow. And like at the time too, like I was getting a little upset. It was like, people here like, oh, God told me this, God did this for me, like, and answered my prayer. And like, I didn't have, like, I was wanting an experience. Like I was wanting to hear him. And just 3 times that week, I just felt like he slapped me over the head and was like, can you hear me now?
Yep. Sometimes it'll be loud.
Yeah, it was loud.
And sometimes, it'll be really quiet. That's why it's like good to have that quiet place, because especially like the TV's on, someone's making breakfast, someone's doing whatever, like you got to find that quiet place, whether it even be like in your broom closet or a coat closet.
Right, in your prayer closet or whatever you have.
Whatever you want to, yeah.
I also have one to add. I think that's like important. I don't know if you had more, but
Go for it.
So I think one thing that's really important is, and this is, whether you're at church or, again, you can be in your own closet or whatever, but just putting on worship music and just sitting in his presence and just let him like break your heart, like just feel the Holy Spirit just give you a hug. Like just sit there and just be still, be quiet, and just ask for his like love, and he will mold you. He will soften your heart. Like I've had such big breakthroughs just doing that alone.
Oh.
Forget about, I mean, like everything's great, right? Praying, fasting, doing all those things, but sometimes you just sit in his presence and he will just melt your heart, and it would do wonders for you. And if you feel like, man, you're not doing that, then, I would challenge you, just to try it, either whether it's like 30 minutes, every Sunday or whatever the case is, just really just let him.
When you drive, when you're working, especially if you work from home, let it play, or I have a friend, she has it in her earbuds while she's doing whatever. It works.
Well, the best is, I don't know if it ever happens to you, but like I wake up sometimes with a song in my head.
Yes.
And nothing's better than when you wake up with a worship song in your head,
yeah.
or something like, I don't even know the name of it, and I have to sit there and like comment into like my phone so it kind of recognizes what the title is so I can play it. Otherwise, and I'll hum it all day long. It's like, in a way, that's God speaking to me, and I prefer like waking up to those songs than any other song, that
Right.
might, so.
Absolutely. I made a little note on the people you surround yourself with. I mean, like, obviously you don't have to hang out exclusively with Christians, and like, that's not, obviously we're called to sit with, whoever, and, be the salt. You can't be the salt of the earth if you're not being around, other people. But some people, especially people with like tons and tons of friends, that's something like I never really understood, always had like very small circles, but like, are you just constantly surrounding yourself with like 50 people and all you're doing is hanging out and drinking, and like, is that building you up? Is that going to be the rest of your life? Is that your purpose, is just hanging out and getting drunk every single weekend?
Well,
and like, I like a good drink, don't get me wrong, but
Well, and also if you're surrounding yourself with those type of people and everything all the time, then where are those people when things get tough?
Exactly. That was exactly where I was going with that.
And so like, if you have at least a close group of brothers that, you can rely on to talk to at a moment's notice, drop of a hat, it doesn't necessarily have to be like in a range type thing, but like, yeah, but what I meant earlier is like, yeah, not like you have to ostracise yourself from like secular world and everything else.
Of course.
Because you can have those friends, and
Yeah.
and I mean that's what Jesus wants us to anyways, is to talk to and bring in more sheep, right?
Mhm.
So be an example of Christ and everything else.
And this isn't a biblical thing, but I think it's worth mentioning because like there was this study done, and no, I can't quote it, but Google it. You develop the traits of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
That explains why I act like a child all the time.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
But I mean, but seriously, like, like when you look at it like that, like if you think about the 5 people you spend the most time with, like, and if it's like, oh, I don't want to be like, maybe you should rethink, who you spend
Who your close circle is.
Anyway.
One thing I kind of, because you talk about like a tight circle,
Mhm.
having crazy amount of friends, and it's semi joking, but when you look at Jesus, he had 12 disciples, and one of them turned against Jesus, right? So that's, if Jesus is 1 and 12, what are we?
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So,
that's true. I mean, they were literally in the presence of God,
right?
and one of them still betrayed him.
Well, I mean, so was the devil, right?
Yeah, a third of the angels fell.
Right? So
that's some perspective right there.
which I think a big thing in that is like, I think proof in that seeing isn't also believing, because the devil can stand there in the presence of God and still not believe. So that's why, sometimes you get these people who say that, I don't believe. Well, if God's real, then why doesn't he just like appear right here in front of me, right? And it's, one, you don't test God, right? Which we know that says in the Bible. But 2, seeing isn't believing. Just because you did see him, you say that you think that you would just instantly believe him, but that's not even true. A third of the angels didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you're going to do any better?
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of people who have Christians and even myself who, have our peaks and valleys and being, lukewarm and then being on fire for God. I've witnessed miracles before and I've still had my peaks and valleys, right? So just because you say, oh yeah, well, if I would have witnessed miracles or whatever, I just believe and be that, it's not as easy as that sounds,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's got to be like a whole discussion in and of itself too. I think there's so much more that's even wrong with it. Anyway, what else did you have?
Like I had another verse that went with just adding to the like salt, and that was like Matthew 15:8.
Okay.
These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. So that just another way of saying, just to further affirm throughout because obviously the verse we're taking from is prophetic, a message to.
What was the numbers?
Matthew 15:8.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that goes a lot with when he said, many people will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, haven't I prophesied in your name? Haven't I done all this?
Haven't all this stuff.
Right.
It
So
says,
it's the
it
same,
says,
which is right
but,
before then.
Yeah, but I don't know you.
Yeah,
right?
I do not know you.
So it kind of goes along with what you were just talking about, like witnessing miracles, witnessing stuff, but then, people can sit there and lay praise on you, be like, oh yeah, this is great. But then like your words are saying this, but your heart's telling me a different story.
Right. Or there's big time false preachers out there too that, they're doing it for themselves. They're doing it for the money. They're not truly doing it for God. Right. And I think that's another aspect to that too.
Right. Yeah. Media is a big problem as well.
Yeah. And that's something like I'm afraid of falling into that trap. Like, especially doing this, like, I'm a voice actor and producer, by profession. And obviously like I like acting, I like putting on a performance. Right. And so like I try to make sure before we record, like, we pray before we start recording, because I never want to make it about me or us. I mean, obviously we're the ones doing it, but just being
absolutely
focusing on being just the vessel for the Lord, spreading the word, not like, does my hair look okay for the camera? Like forget it,
Right.
What?
Like, is my fly down? I mean,
Well,
for that wide shot.
Another thing too with what you're saying with that verse, it kind of reminds me how it also goes along with the metaphor of Jesus and the fig tree, because if you're lukewarm, you're not having, any works, and like thus you're not bearing any fruits.
Right.
I feel like it really goes along with that as well. Did you have more?
No, I think that's about what I kind of got written down as far as things that you need to do. So, just basically be involved, like not so much that you have to volunteer like your whole life to the church and, like every little thing, but it's nice to like meet once a month for, like you said, for brunch, or even just get together, find some men to where, like, even if it's just fellowship, like a bunch of guys going hiking, and
Or play a game.
Yeah, or play a game. And like I also, challenge that like you kind of keep it separate. So like it's okay to have like a big group of friends, but it's also good to have a group of guys, a group of ladies, because we all struggle with things, and it's a lot easier to open up and talk about things and pray about things that are unique to us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it.
So to kind of piggyback on like the whole salt thing, right? Because it's salt in the light, right? It's salt in the light of the earth. So I was going to read just real quick. So right after the salt of the earth, right? You're also the light of the world, right? So this is Matthew 5, verse 14 to 16. You're the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Right? So you should also kind of, if you want to do some self-reflecting and make sure that you are doing the good walk, right? It's like, am I being that lamp on the lampstand? Do I think that when people see me, they go, that's a man of God, or that's a woman of God, that's a, right? Is that the perception that I'm giving to the world? Right, like, or am I just some random schmo, right? Like
am I doing what God's called me to do?
Right.
Like if he called me to go out and I need you to feed the homeless, or I need you to, talk to people like while you're shopping for groceries, but I'm just sitting at home and getting Uber Eats and having it delivered to me. I'm not necessarily listening to like and using my full potential for, what God's calling me to.
Yeah. And how do you figure out what God's calling you to do? By not, I mean, go to church every Sunday, yes, but, make sure you're committing to him more than that. Reading the Bible every night. Start your day with prayer, and the thing is, it's going to get easier and easier. And once you get to a certain point, you're literally going to crave it, to quote, I think it's just in The Chosen. So I'm just going to say, I think it was just a quote from The Chosen. John the Baptist said it's like eating food for the first time when you didn't realize you were hungry for it. So I'm paraphrasing, but I was like, wow, that's powerful.
So I'm just going to share this because it was just like a thing that happened 2 weeks ago when I was, I don't think I shared this on the last episode, but so when I was out getting gas at the gas station, I was having a good day, listening to worship music, and then something happened and I was just in a bad mood for I slipped up a little bit, you know what I mean? Getting mad and just letting my anger get the best of me. And I get out of the car. I'm kind of frustrated. And I always, people come up to you at the gas station. They're like, can I have some money? And I'm always just like, no, go away.
No,
especially because for me, I have my kids in the car. So I'm even more please get away from my car. Because I've also had altercations at the same gas station where they won't leave me alone. They're trying to talk to my wife too. And I'm like, no, get away from my car because I get bad vibes, right? So the second I get out of the car and I know I'm in a bad mood and I'm trying to, be that good Christian, right? A guy comes to me and asks me for money and I'm just like, I can tell I have my mad face on, right? I have this leave me alone, don't come up and approach me face, right? And he still comes up and asks me for money for his car. And he was like, I just need $15 for gas, $5 for gas. Can you just fill up my pump? And I just looked over at him and I was just like, just something in my heart. I was like, I haven't done this probably in years. And I was like, sure, I'll do it for you. So I walk over to the guy and he was, started talking to me. I'm like, all right, I put my card in, put the number, go to fill up his gas. And I'm just like, are you okay? I just get this feeling. I'm like, I should just ask this guy. Is he okay? You doing okay? He's like, yeah, I'm all right. I just, I don't have money right now. And I'm like, okay. He's just like, do you need anything else? Because I knew it was there's a reason why this guy's talking to me, And he was like, no, I'm just struggling right now. My mom passed away a year ago and I've just been dealing with it. So immediately I was like, I knew there had to be something. So, and I'm just letting the gas fill up because I'm just like, I don't even care about that anymore. Right. So I'm just like, and he's like, no, just it's only $5. And it's at 10.50. I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. Just what's wrong? And he pulls the pump out and he puts it in. So I'm like, well, it's a pretty genuine thing to do. Right. To be like, okay. And I was like, do you need prayer? And he was like, actually, I do. So I was like, okay. So I prayed over him, asked him his name, whatever, prayed over this guy. Really nice guy. But I feel like that changed his day. I could tell the way he kind of had a little thump in his step. He seemed down and now he seemed kind of up. When he drove off, he honked and waved and he was super energetic and happy. And I think that was I'm not trying to say oh, look what I did. But for me, in that moment, he doesn't know. He just probably thinks, oh, that's a really good guy who just, maybe prayed over me. I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed that just as much as he needed that. Because I was in a bad mood and I was going through something. And then God put something in front of me here, I want you to do this, something simple. And then I did it. And I was like, thank you for the opportunity. And I'm so glad I didn't let my anger blind me in that moment to just be tell him to go, go away and who knows, maybe make his day worse than he's already going through it. Right. So I think that's kind of part of when we behave, to being the salt and the light of the earth, even when we're maybe struggling with our own and someone else maybe be struggling, still try to be that good Christian, that vessel for God.
Yeah.
Right. Even when you're at not
even
a
when you
high
don't
moment.
when you don't want to always be listening. Cause then, that could have changed the trajectory of his life.
Yeah. You never know. You never know.
Just needed a little. So, I mean, God knows his heart and, what he's going to do from there. But, it's, it could really, really make a difference. But, here I am, send me.
Yep.
And it does as much for you, like you said,
Right.
as it does for the other person. And that's what we're called to do. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, right? And we're
Right.
supposed to be like God, like Jesus, right?
Right. Try your best.
Yeah.
Even though we will definitely fall short.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, does anyone else have any thoughts before we close this out?
No, I think we're good.
Well, that was our episode on lukewarm Christianity. We'll see if we do any more follow-ups with that. For all of you who have been listening, following, liking, sharing, thank you so much. Like I said in the last episode, the support that we've been receiving before we even started has been absolutely incredible. And in so many ways, from just wanting to listen, following us, to literally helping us with being able to do this production. So thank you so much. Because we do feel called to do this podcast in order to help spread the word. So, I just think it's incredible how people are coming together to help us. But we appreciate you all taking the time to listen. God bless, be safe, and we'll see you next time.